Clicks here. Hey, comic book guys and gals. This is the comic book crowd. We're back again with our third episode. How about that? They didn't think we would last, guys. They didn't think we would last. But we got 3 episodes in. All right. That's more than some other people have done. So congrats. Nice. So looking at this, going from this side, we got Matt Woods. Matt Woods Comics. How you doing, Matt? We have Steve Master Blaster and Madam Blaster. Madam is out today. She's not here. And he's got his beautiful hat on from somewhere. Where was that from, Steve?
The robes from Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan, okay.
Yeah.
We have Alan, Climbing Comics. Hey, Alan. And we have Wayne, Squirrel Manus Comics. So it's really great. So let's say hi. We got a couple of people are in here at least. Let's see. Yeah, we got Randy. How you doing, Randy?
Good. Hey, Randy.
All right. Excellent. We have also, who else here? We have Chuck. All right.
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. You got it. All right. So we are here, but before we begin, I know we have a really good, and we have a really good topic tonight. One that I think Reggie found out about. He's got spies all over the place, and his video today kind of addressed it a little bit. All right. And so when we took a look at it and said, "What's Reggie talking about?" So we know somebody gave up the game. How you doing, Comic Book Worm? Hey, Psychedelic Comics. Hello. How you doing?
Hey, Paul.
Okay, so before we get on there, most of you guys know that I had this mystery box for St. Jude's Hospital for Children. All right, a charity mystery box, and so I just put together 12 boxes, $50 a piece. I was going to match it if we sold all of them in 12 days. 12 days, right? So it's really funny. So I told these guys, hey, you guys, maybe you can support me on this. Everybody says, yeah, don't worry, we'll support you, right? Then I go back and I call up, I talk to Reggie. I say, Reggie, at the Wednesday show, could you mention it, please, right? So that way I might be able to sell a couple of, boxes and stuff like that. He said, yeah, sure, Joe, I'll mention it. Well, lo and behold, like within 6 or 7 hours, they were all gone. And if you saw Reggie's show, he said, I was going to talk about it, but they're all sold out. But Reggie bought 3 of them.
Nice.
Which is really nice to him.
Really nice.
So he said, put together some sort of slobbery video. No, it was from the heart. If you guys watch, it was from the heart. But I'm really happy. I'm just waiting to get some envelopes and stuff from the post office. They're mailing them to me. Hopefully I'll get them by Monday. And then I'll put them together. And the people that bought them, I'll be sending them out to them. And we will have the drawing to see who gets the extra 5 books. And I'll probably do it and then maybe add the 5 books to whatever I send to the individuals. So thanks again to everybody who helped out, and for everybody who helped out in spirit as well. Because I did get a lot of people saying, could you do some more boxes? And I just don't have the time right now, guys. It's the end of the year. It's Christmas, New Year's. I'm doing some stuff with the house. So I don't have the time. So I'm not going to do that. But one of the Gibbon Gang members approached me, said it was a really good idea. And we talked about potentially partnering next year. So we might do this again, because I was thinking of doing it again anyway. We might do it again, partnering with another person. I don't want to mention it because I'm not sure if it's going to happen. And maybe we'll have a bunch more boxes than the 12 I put together. And we'll give it another shot and see what we can do. So again, fantastic. Thank you so much. It was a great, great thing. All right. So we have our topic today, Cameo versus first appearance. Matt?
Well, you know what? We're going to talk about cameo appearances versus the first. But before we do that, Joe, I just want to say thank you to you for supporting St. Jude's. St. Jude's is a wonderful organization that helps children. Families don't have to pay a cent. They even they put people up in rooms so that they don't even have to pay. Families don't have to pay for lodging. it is such a wonderful organization. I myself have been supporting them for years, and I actually know I'm a school teacher, and I'm not going to get in specifics, but I know somebody who was able, St. Jude's was able to help out and help that family out. So hats off to you, Joe, because that's an absolute awesome organization.
Well, thanks. And I've been supporting them for years myself. It's just, when I just saw what they did, it was just kind of a no-brainer for me.
Mm-hmm.
So some of my charity money definitely goes there every year. So I'm happy that I was able to do this and basically kind of double up on it, which is fantastic. Thanks, Matt.
You're a good man. So anyhow, one of the most controversial, fun topics that no one will ever get a straight answer out of. What is most important? The first cameo or the first full appearance? And sometimes I think it's semantics. I just think people want, if they have both issues, they just say it so that both issues become valuable. But I'll give you a classic example here, okay? And I'm Master Blaster. I'm going to ask his opinion here, but this book right here, okay?
Hold on, Matt.
ASM 299, the second McFarlane book. Look at the last page. It even says Venom. But if it's the most valuable one, they just consider that a cameo. It's really not even a super valuable book, although it is rosin. But this book right here, it's clearly, in some people's opinion, his second appearance. So which one is more important for comic history? Steve, I'm going to jump to you because I know you have an opinion on his ASM 99-300 controversy.
Frankly, even 316, the first full cover appearance of Venom, we want to have our cake and eat it too, and then eat it a third time, apparently. So I'm just going to tip my hand right out of the gate. I mean, the very first time they actually appear is where I land. And we just want to keep spreading the love and spreading it across multiple books and having our cake and eat it too. So 299 is where I'm at. And I think, Matt, hats off to you. Venom is the perfect example because it is literally spread across 3 books almost.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm with you on 299. And there's like
I didn't say I thought that was the first appearance. I said some people thought
there's even a Web of Spider-Man book where a shadow nudges Peter out on out a window. I can't remember the book. Somebody help me if you know what I'm talking about, but it's a little nudge to Venom before even 299, if I'm not mistaken. So it can get out of hand, but I'm solely the first time that they appear. If they say their name, I'm Team Hulk 180, and I will defer to Alan. He looks ready to talk.
Yeah, this is a really, really kind of, I wouldn't say controversial, but there are a lot of different opinions on it, right? Because for me, I also like the actual real first appearance. So when you actually see a full panel of Wolverine in 180, to me, it's a full appearance. It is his full body. He's like coming out of the woods. And I think everyone could just imagine that image in their heads. But where I think it kind of gets a little bit gray is because a lot of people want that cover appearance on like 181 with Wolverine. So I think that's where there's a lot of division. There you go. But it's so weird because I know I'm gonna bring a modern example here because I remember who is that new villain in Punchline. I remember Punchline. There was a panel where it was just you couldn't see her, but there was a word bubble. But is that a first appearance? To me, that isn't really a first appearance as much as a full panel where you actually see Wolverine. So it's a little bit of gray.
Well, let me ask you this then, because you guys know all this stuff and have delved into it. I'm going to say a couple of things. First thing is, all of this really has to do with spec, as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't have to do with what you believe or doesn't believe, because who makes this up? It really has to do with what's more valuable. That's where people say, well, this is the first appearance. So 181 is more valuable than 180 because that's the first appearance. So everybody considers that, and that's the way it turns out. But to me, Alan, you really hit my issue without saying it directly is, what is a cameo? I mean, I was going to get the dictionary, but I don't think we have to go there. What's a cameo? What's the first appearance? So, in 180, you do see Wolverine. I think his name is mentioned, right?
Yeah.
He
well.
says
Yes.
his own name.
So why isn't that a first appearance? I mean, to me, I don't know. 180 is his. I mean, he's got the cover, right? He's got the storyline. So that's
He's not on the cover in 180.
Excuse me? No, in 181.
He's not on the cover on 180.
No, in 181 I meant. In 181, he's on the cover and he's got the full storyline. So that's a significant book. There's no doubt about it. But maybe not because it's his quote unquote first appearance. To me, based on what I understand, not having the books in my hands, 180 would be really his first appearance. He's named, he's there, you see him. Punchline, I agree, might be a little bit different. Because you really don't see her. Her name is mentioned. So how many different categories can you have? Name mentioned, arm but no face, face but no name, full body, part body, cover, no cover. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough thing to get through.
Well, yeah, like that's an example. One of the things to think of is Immortal Hulk. Before Immortal Hulk shows up on the cover of his Avengers 683, there's panels in previous issues where you sort of get a sense of him starting to come up, to rise. Like you see parts of him or whatever, but it's kind of a cameo, but it's not really a full, but he does appear. But I just want to point, my most egregious one that I always go to is Gambit.
Oh, yes.
X-Men Annual, is it 14? I mean, it's not a one-page thing. He's in multiple panels. He speaks. His name is used. How is that not a first appearance? Why is it X-Men 266? That makes zero sense to me.
So again, I think it's the cover.
Yeah. Oh, I think he is on the cover too, isn't he? Of the annual, isn't he a little figure? I have it here somewhere, but I know he's in multiple panels, and he's by name, and he speaks. It's like, how is that not an appearance?
Now, Mary Jane Watson, she has an interesting history in comics. She was first named as a possible date for Peter in issue of ASM 15. You see the back of her head, and it's just a small panel, and ASM 25, but you don't get that classic, face it tagger. You just hit the jackpot until the very last panel on issue number 42. And I don't know what they consider the first appearance of Mary Jane, but for some reason, I don't see it being number 40, or it's issues other than number 42.
Is it?
Yes, it is. But why that is, I couldn't tell you. But again, maybe people are just trying to play the market.
But
well,
then I mean,
what do you look at? What do you look at to determine what the quote unquote market or what people think is the first appearance versus cameo? Do you look at collector app? Is that what you look at? I mean, who says that?
Well,
gosh.
Yeah.
Bible, they're the ones who tell us this. The comic book.
Not anymore. Not anymore, in my opinion. Not anymore, in my opinion. I think sadly, I think a lot of it's driven by the grading companies.
Yeah.
What do they put on their label? That's what the market will now dictate as the first appearance. If all of a sudden CGC said 180 is the first appearance of Wolverine, all of a sudden the prices will do that immediately. So, I mean,
CGC hedges their bet.
Who should make the determination? Should it be the grading companies? Should they have the power to make that determination? Is it really based on what the market is saying? Is the market driving their decisions to decide what a first appearance is? Or are they unilaterally making a decision and then affecting the market by their decision?
Mm-hmm.
That's a
great point. That's a great point.
Used to be over.
CGC actually hedges their bet. They put on Hulk 181 the first full appearance of Wolverine, which I don't think anyone was ever using that term full appearance before CGC.
Alan, another variable, you say?
Oh no! Actually, Wayne brought up the exact thing that I wanted to bring up because that was a poignant time to bring it up because I think the grading companies are driving certain things now because people will flock to the label that says full appearance, or I don't know what 180 says, but I'm sure it says something else. So people will also try to buy that up as well. But I think it's really up to the collector themselves, honestly, because that's why I think it's okay if some people think 180 is the first appearance and other people think 181, as long as I could buy my book that's that's still like within the price range that
Well, what
is
Steve
their
says
first
is right.
appearance.
Collect what you love. But as I mentioned to begin with, I mean, and I think, Wayne, you're right. The grading company, I mean, we're talking before we started about the fact that I'm going to probably grade some of my ASMs, the early ones and stuff like that. Why was I doing that? Because the value will go up. All right. Instead of having a 12-cent comic that I bought as a kid, now it's going to be worth, let's say, hundreds or something like that. So for a small investment, I get a good return. But who determines that? I mean, the market does, but the market is affected by what the grading company does, and that little slip at the top makes a difference. It makes a big difference.
So true.
It is true, Wayne. I'm glad you brought that up, because knowing what we're going to talk about tonight, I actually went on eBay and I was looking at Fantastic Four 48 to see old label. What did CGC say about Galactus? And did they change their mind later with the new label? And it's like, first appearance of Silver Surfer and Galactus. And then in brackets, it's like for Galactus, cameo appearance. But with Hulk 180, it just says cameo appearance. It's worded differently. It's presented differently. Your point about what the grading companies, what they decide has an impact is very poignant point, because it's true.
And what if they change their minds? I mean, no, because we've seen language change on labels. A label may say one thing, and then down the road, they may identify there's something else about that book, so they'll add that to the label. So what if they end up changing that language? It's one of the,
You bring up a great point, Wayne. Now, you guys know I'm a Conan guy, and I can't not show a Conan.
No, really?
Okay.
Didn't know that.
Conan, who's Conan?
Right?
Who's Conan?
Okay. This is Conan the Barbarian 23. Now, this has Red Sonja all through it. Like, she is in here. She says her name. I think there's like 16 pages she's in this book. But for years, this was not considered her first appearance. This book, Conan 24, was considered the first appearance. It's still considered the first full appearance, which I don't know. If she's in it for 16 pages saying her name, that's clearly what some people would say first appearance. But the market has actually switched. And now this book always got to love because of this cover, and this is her first cover. But the market's now coming down where Conan 23 is the first appearance of Red Sonja. So the market does shift. It will switch the designation on these books and what is a first appearance, what is a second appearance or cameo, whatever.
But don't you still
what
need
do
a
you think of
reference
that, Alan?
point? I mean, Alan, Matt, don't you still need a reference point? I mean, when this happens, you're saying it's the marketplace, but somebody's got to make kind of that decision, or I mean, because when you do get something graded, going back to what Wayne had to say, it's going to be on that slip at the top. So if it's going to change for that Conan, the first appearance of Red Sonja, when's that going to happen? Who's going to decide that? Is it going to be CGC or CBCS? Are they going to say, hey, it kind of feels that way now, or something like that?
Well, I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, ultimately, let's be real. If CGC slaps it on the label, from that point on, that's the market standard. But what makes CGC decide what to put on the label? What was transpiring before they actually made that decision to say first appearance? And that's where you're starting to get increased sales on eBay and Heritage and the other auction sites. And I still believe that the market pushes all these grading companies and even Overstreet to a certain point.
I totally agree.
It's a great point. If you took this argument outside of the comic book community, Matt, you just showed an example, and you showed 100 people who are not into comic books, and you said, this comic book was before this one, and look, this character says their name. Here they are. They're gonna and you say which one's the first appearance, and they have no idea about the comic book market. They have no idea about what we're talking about. Where are they gonna land? 100 people. They're gonna pick the first time that character appears in the comic book, the earlier version.
Right.
And what Wayne and Matt are saying is, the market and the grading companies are playing towards the marketplace, towards the book that is the one that we want to be the most popular, regardless of reality. When did they first appear?
So
I think
a lot of it has to do with the art, the cover page. You know, where is the biggest first appearance of that character? You brought up ASM 316. Honestly, that book should be unremarkable, but it's the first cover appearance of Venom. And so it is kind of a small minor key that keeps growing. And it's only growing because that's who's on the cover. It's his first appearance.
And is it really? Because there's 316 is the red cover, right?
There's
the other one where he's in the little bubble, right? He's in the bubble on an earlier one, so he has a different first cover appearance, technically speaking.
That's correct. That's correct.
Why isn't that the high value book? Why is 316 the high value book?
Right.
But one thing I wanted to add, just something Steve said made me think about people outside the community. I'm thinking other collectors. So if you were a sports card collector and you said, I want a rookie card for this great player, and your rookie card choices are 180 and 181, what would a sports card collector say? They would say 180 is the rookie card, I would think. I would think they would go for that one because that's the first one you can get that has that picture of that person in full. So yeah. I think depending on the kind, comics are a weird collectible in that sense. Like sports cards and stuff, much more defined, whereas comics, it's kind of, you know.
See now, bookworm.
Well, baseball cards can be tricky like that too. A Barry Bonds rookie card, you know, is it the 1987 Topps card, or is it the 86 rookie trade, which I've heard came out after the 87 card? So or baseball cards are very similar with nobody knows which one it is.
Well, I want to bring up now. I was thinking about something, and Comic Bookworm says, could CGC be being dishonest? So I don't think so. But what was coming into my mind was, if CGC is making these pronouncements, all right, on the labels, right? And we say, well, where does it come from? It could be the market, whatever it happens to be. But what's in it for them? All right. I'm sorry. This is the way my mind thinks. I always think to myself, what's in it for them?
Follow the money.
Right. See, no. So if they suddenly kind of said, you know what? It seems to us, based on what we see here, that Hulk 180 is really the first appearance, maybe not the first full appearance. So we come up with this word, but this is the first appearance. Then people can say, oh, maybe I want 180 also because this is not the full first appearance, but it's a first appearance. Yeah. So in their instance, are they doing some of this because it may cause more people to submit their books? And they can make more money doing this in this particular fashion. And who else has some kind of stake in this? I mean, who else? Speculators would, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if you have 5 copies of 180, but none of 181, you'd love to see 180 become the first appearance.
Right.
Right. But yeah. But I think from that standpoint, I'm just trying to kind of come to grips with how this happens. Who the influencers are that do this, all right, and how do you think it ends up potentially changing? You know, as Matt was saying, was happening with Red Sonja, and you know, what does that mean for? I mean, I think for me, it doesn't mean much. I'll collect what I want, and I could say, well, yeah, I think Hulk 180 is the first appearance, so there, I got it, and I don't care about 181. And 180 is more affordable to me, and now I got what I think is the first appearance. But that's not what everybody else thinks, you know?
Yeah. Well, in a weird way, the grading companies are being extremely accommodating to collectors, you know, by making multiple quote first-ish type of appearances. And that makes more people happy. And again, it's good business. You're proud. Hey, I have a Hulk 180. You know, it's the first appearance or first cameo. And you're excited about that. Or vice versa. If you have the 181, you know, now you have the first full appearance. And so you have two people that are equally happy. And when you have happy customers, they might be more apt to send more books down and hence generate more revenue for the grading companies. Here's the next little thing that I got for you, okay? Conan, okay? Yes, I got to bring up Conan. You guys noticing the theme? All right, but this is the first appearance of Conan the Barbarian in comic books, okay? Came out in October of 1970. Awesome cover, by the way. But Barry Windsor Smith, and I'm going to bring that back. Barry Windsor Smith was not only the cover artist, he also drew the interiors. Now you go back to 1969 into a little known book, Chambers of Darkness #4. Okay. It was a short-lived series. And basically they came up with like just really cool off the wall. I don't know if they're horror stories or what, but off the wall stories like that. Well, Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith did a experiment. They had a character called Star the Slayer. And I don't know how well this shows up on the camera. Is there any way to make me full screen, Joe?
Sure. Sorry.
But you will see Barry Windsor Smith art on this book. You can see a Conan looking character with the horns on his helmet.
Holy cow.
And it looks just like this guy, okay?
Yeah.
So when you talk about first appearances, now, this book isn't a secret, okay? But not everybody knows about Chamber of Darkness #4, where it was a clear Conan prototype. You know, you can't even deny it. He was a barbarian and blah, blah, blah. But he was in modern times. But could that eventually get some type of designation by one of the grading companies as a cameo or whatever type of appearance, and hence gain value in the future? Like, are the first appearances and cameos set in stone today? And will it always be that case going forward? But what do you think about that, Wayne?
I think if it's not in name, then they probably won't. I think it's different. I mean, it looks just like him, acts just like him, I guess, but
same
it's
author,
not name, right? So I don't think they would ever make that association. There's other ones where I think they have made some associations which aren't really, really solid connections. Like, was it Tales to Astonish or Tales of Suspense? An early 60s one, pre-Hulk one, where they had that monster, where they were doing the Groom and the Grom and all the different monsters. And they had one that was the Hulk. And I think they do make a connection between as like a proto-Hulk to a character having the name of Hulk before Hulk was Hulk. So, I mean, they do make some connections, but that one I don't think they would make that connection because name, I mean, it's just not the same.
It is a different name, right?
Yeah, and I don't think they'll make that connection.
I do.
So I'm going to bounce off of this idea here that Matt brought up, because I think one of the biggest things is just to call back. I think it's really market driven, right? Because what the mass of the community says is a first appearance will rise up and bubble up to, I'll say, who are the people that provide information to who's that comics grading guide, right? The Overstreet guide. They have a list of people who kind of feed into how they form their opinions on grading. And I'm sure there's some high, VIP people as well that kind of where it bubbles up, and that's where the decisions are made for like these grading companies as to what is considered a first appearance or not first appearance. But I think a lot of people don't realize, just like Matt said, there are books that come out before the actual books that we say are the first appearance, where it's actually the first appearance. I'm going to bring up, I don't know if many people, like I've looked up some of the things for this show. So I know Giant Size X-Men #1 was the new team, but there was also another book before that called the Foom 10. So I'm going to bring it up here.
All right, hold on. Let me get you over there.
Foom. I'm glad you
Foom?
brought this up, Al.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Foom.
Foom 10 is like one of like kind of a big book, but this is actually more attainable than a giant size X-Men #1 at this point. That's why I wanted to bring it up. But a lot of people, and I'm gonna bounce off of this as well, because what about Black Suit Spider-Man? Like there's 4 different books that came out within the same month that showed Black Suit Spider-Man. Who is like, is it this book, number 8? Secret Wars? Is it 252? Is it Marvel Team Up? Or a lot of people don't know this book, but is it this one with Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man?
I got
with,
the answer
Black
for you.
Cat?
It's 252 because I had that one.
Or
Exactly.
I have them
Marvel
all,
Age,
so I'm good.
or the Marvel Age. And again, not first appearance, but first time you see it, Marvel Age, where they preview Secret Wars, and they actually show the black suit and talk about the history of how Spider-Man's black suit was developed in terms of buying the idea from that kid who came up with the idea and all that. I think chronologically, isn't that the first actual time you see it? Because pre-Secret Wars.
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. Like,
Came
there's
out
5
before
options.
the other 4 books.
Yeah.
And Foom #1 had also what is arguably the first appearance of Wolverine. There was a panel where fans wrote in and they gave their ideas for characters. Well, guys, there was it was Wolverine. It even looked like Wolverine, the same color scheme. And you can really argue Wolverine wasn't 180 or 181. It was actually Foom #1, which is an awesome Stranko cover of Hulk holding up Foom.
It's a rabbit hole, because then you start talking about like Malibu Sun for Spawn, or you talk about, even like CGC in their labels. And I know they do this for DC as well as Marvel. They'll do like, I don't know, X-Men 1 featuring an advertisement for Hulk #1. Why are you pointing out there's an advertisement for a book? Are you implying that this is an early appearance? Because it's showing a cover of a book that you're about to put on sale next month.
Yes.
And it's got a picture of that character on it and their names on the title. Is that the first appearance now? Like, you're pointing it out on the label. So it's kind of like, what's the grader trying to imply by doing that?
That's very true.
But
Like, it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, sometimes it goes outside of the comic book area too, and I can't think of all of them because I don't have the same knowledge base that you guys do. But I do know, for example, with respect to Black Adam, because the movie's coming out now, right? Roy Thomas's alter ego #7, of which I had a copy when I was a kid, but I don't have any more, has the Marvel family going up to Black Adam, who's kind of on top of a hill or something like that. And I, looking it up before we went to see Roy, I took a look at that because I knew I had that book. It's selling now for like a graded copy, like in the mid numbers, is selling for about $450. Now, why is that? Because it's considered by many, and I think the label says this, considered by many or something the first appearance of Black Adam in the Silver Age.
Oh, in the Silver Age. Okay. In
the Silver Age. So that was right there. So that particular book, you can find some of the other original books from back in the 1960s that Roy and this guy Jerry Bales had made as one of the first big fanzines of the 60s. But that one is hard to come by because people want a ton of money for that because it is considered by some to be, So
where Scam 28 is considered by many to be the first post Golden Age appearance and only second appearance of Black Adam, and first in DC Comics, etc., etc. But is it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, here's the last point I want on this topic, or that I have for this topic. All right. So, who originally comes up with this term "first appearance"? Now, we now have previews where the comic book companies can actually push, and state first appearance of this character or that character. But what do we have before the previews magazines that made the first appearance be a real thing? Like, who came up with,
that's a good point.
Like, are the publishers pushing this in order to increase the sales that month of that particular book.
Of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So who
Honestly, I think
ultimately-
it's
is it
the-
the market to blame, or is it the publishers to blame?
Honestly, I think it's when so we're talking about the fringe books. Honestly, I feel like really glad that I'm actually part of this group, because I feel like I'm just getting into comics and now I'm kind of diving deep into the rabbit hole. But we're talking about fringe books here. But I think the mass of the community, if you choose, that's why cover appearances are the easiest things to say, hey, this is the first appearance. It's on the cover. It's in a slab. You won't be able to open the slab and see what's inside. That's the first appearance. But to be honest, I think it's whatever fits the mass of people collecting these books as, like, you know, an easy way to say that this is the first appearance, because more people will say that, oh, okay, I see the cover. This is their first appearance. Cool. Because that's one of the reasons why I like to take a read of my first appearance books, because honestly, I figure out that, hey, this isn't their necessarily first appearance. Their story actually starts before this story.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've just come to realize that, because in the beginning I used to collect first appearances but not read the story. Now I started to do that, and I learned so much more about, you know, the origin.
Well, I would say I think of Knowles, the third printing where Knowles on the cover, Venom 3, third printing.
Oh,
Is that, am
yeah.
I right about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then it came out after a later Venom cover. Well, Noel was on the cover, but it's a numbers game.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what we're saying is the community's deciding, and the community will change in the future. So the community might we might have a completely different community 10 years from now that is like the very first time they show up, and then we all start hunting those books. We've all changed our minds, right? So it's a moving mark, and we're a part of it. And all these future people that are going to join the community are going to decide. But I always land on the first time I see them. I don't want to make it complicated. When Wolverine is in that panel and he's in his costume and he's popping out of the woods and he says, "My name's Wolverine,"
Yes.
that's his first appearance.
You won't
You
be
can't
swayed.
change
Is that
my
what you're
mind.
saying?
You cannot change my mind about that. I am Hulk 180, Team Hulk
Yes.
180 for life.
You know what would be interesting? Because that Hulk 180, 181 thing is really like one of the biggest deals, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things, what's Matt showing there?
ASM 299.
Venom.
Oh, he was blocked
Yeah.
out by my camera, so I couldn't see him. But I think what really would be cool, not that I would do it or I expect anybody else to do it, is to go back and do an historical perspective, right? If you're able to go back, I don't know if there's information out there, what have you, go back to when these issues came out and what discussions there might have been and what people might have said about them, and kind of followed the timeline around, you know? I don't think Kang was involved with this, so I think we're okay. You go through it, right? And see, like, what happened, you know? Because, Steve, what you're saying makes so much sense to me.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't even like he was there and, you know, you saw his face in the distance, you know. Or,
He's running out saying his name.
yeah, I mean, so it's not something where you could say, oh, it's, you know, which could be a cameo, a short appearance that has no real effect on the story. That's the way I kind of see a cameo. So you could say, well, this is a cameo, you know, because maybe it's a short appearance, doesn't have a story. But when he's coming out and he says, "I'm Wolverine, this is this," and you see his whole picture rather than a part of him or something like that, I agree with you. So what happened? How did that happen? What was the timeline with this? When did people first start looking at this and saying, this is the case? I could see first cover appearance being important. You go to, when I used to go to the comic book shop as a kid, the cover is what drew me in. You know,
Yeah.
I'd look at a cover and say, oh, this looks pretty good, and pick it up. The story could be crappy, but the cover was great. So I could see that. But so to me, like a history and a timeline would be really kind of an interesting thing to be able to see and try to figure out how this kind of worked out and why 181 is it and not 180.
I think Wayne, you're good friends with Kang, right? We need you to call him so we can go back and see.
I wish I was good friends with King.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Is that an Arnold Conan? That is an Arnold Conan. Yes.
Matt's very tricky that way.
Is there anybody on the panel right now that would land on Hulk 181?
Yeah.
That's the first appearance?
It's the
Only
first
because I own it and I don't own 180.
I'm exactly with Wayne.
Because the market's dictating.
Yes, yes.
I own the one. I don't own the other.
All right.
I don't know
I
either, so-
totally see the argument for first full frontal, pardon the expression, first full frontal with name. I totally 100% see why that should be a first appearance. I agree. Yeah, buy both. You're gonna give me some money, Pretty Fly?
Right.
So I like running through scenarios and hypothetical situations myself. So I'm gonna ask you all a question. And I just want to hear like what you believe, if it changes or if it stays. If I swapped covers with 180 and 181, the covers are just swapped. The rest of the book is exactly the same. Would you consider 180 the first appearance of Wolverine?
Not if I don't own it. No, I'm completely with Wayne. I am not lying. If you were to pin me down and ask me what the first appearance of Wolverine is, 180. But until I own 180, it's going to be 181, and I'm not changing my mind.
See, that goes back to the speculation thing, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
That's really what's driving it now.
But in all fairness to Alan's question, I think putting him on the cover and then having him show up on the last page is like a double whammy. I think that would solidify the position of it being the first appearance in the majority of the community, because that's why first cover appearances make so much of it. That's why, I mean, like, who would think that ASM 316 would be a big book? It's like 16 issues after Venom shows up, and he finally shows up on a cover.
17.
Who would care?
17, because he starts from 299.
Sorry, I apologize, Steve. I'm sorry. 17. But my point being, 17 issues in, that should be a dollar bin book for the most part. But it's huge because he's on the cover. Like, so I mean, the community dictates the cover means a lot. So if you put the cover and a full panel of him, that's a first appearance in most people's books.
Yeah, I think it would. What's the word?
Matt's going to go find a 180
allowed to
somewhere.
say
He's going to go buy a 180 and come back.
Yeah, if you change the covers, Alan, I would agree with you. I mean, 181 would not have as much significance. I mean, it'd be a better story, but it wouldn't have as much significance for sure.
Yeah.
Are you going to show us books, Matt, again?
I wish my
course I am.
collection was that organized. Man,
Right? He
That
just
is
pulls
a
out what he
sweet
needs.
cover.
Go ahead. What are you doing?
if I can just grab it, it's like, I'm
Well,
jealous.
we were talking about it, okay? The first appearance.
Alan.
I just don't have it here.
Yeah, what is
I
the
didn't
one
grab
with the
enough.
little bubble?
Yeah, like this
15.
book is really unremarkable, except Venom's on it. And so it just keeps on going up in value. And
But
I
what's
was
the other
looking
one
for
that he's on?
with the little Venom in the bottom. I didn't grab enough books.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the one that should be the first appearance on the cover, first cover.
Yeah.
Should be.
So let's just skip 299, 300. This is the first appearance of Venom. I don't think they'll go that bad on it.
Steam is coming out of Steve's ears right now when you say that. Careful.
He's so upset.
Don't sleep on Comic Scenes #2. There's a nice preview of Venom.
Comic Scenes number
Don't
2.
sleep on
Oh,
Comic
that's
Scenes
the
number
Spider-Man
2.
yellow cover with the yellow
That's
background.
right.
Yeah.
Beautiful Todd McFarlane yellow
Yeah.
cover. Yeah, don't sleep
Yes.
on that.
Yeah.
There are so many gems on this episode. I swear, like we're making all of the blue oceans into like not blue oceans anymore. I
That's
should
right,
not
we're
have
changing-
brought up Foom 10.
We're changing it.
Well, that's where this conversation leads. You know, it is an adjectives game. There's so many rabbit holes that you can just keep going down, and you keep going down deeper in it, trying to figure out what is a first appearance. So I agree with that comment. You know, is this just an adjective game?
Yeah, but I think certain ones like the outliers that Alan was talking about earlier, like the Foom and whatnot, and I think about like Malibu Sun with Spawn or the Marvel Age with Spider-Man costume. Those are for completists. Those are for people who love that character and want every appearance that character has. But the casual collector, the collector who is just collecting a run of books, won't necessarily drop a dime on getting that book. If it comes in through a lap and they know it exists, they might want it, but they're not going to go out and get it because they're like wanting it. It's Spawn completists will pay money for a Malibu Sun. People who just read Spawn will not do that.
Yeah.
And they don't even think about it. I don't think that much.
We're saying this right now. Go back in time 20 years and you could get 300 for $60 or, you know, and now a 9/8 insane. So
yeah, 6,000-7,000. Yeah.
So we're saying don't go down the rabbit hole, but the rabbit hole is where all the, like, you can make your hay in the rabbit hole, like go down the rabbit hole, and everything we're talking about in the future could be a big deal.
Yeah.
It's quite possible. So
yeah. I'm just thinking from this point of somebody who just collects books because they want the run or they like a character. They're not necessarily going to drop a dime to go off on a tangent to get the fact that a character appears on one page with somebody saying, this is a character that's coming out next month. If they got to drop $2,000 to get that, they'd rather get the actual comic book in continuity run first appearance of that character.
I'm with you.
But
we've been talking about 316. Isn't it mind blowing that 316 is, you know, a big money book?
Who would have thought that? Even 5 years ago, like
that came out of nowhere.
Was just another McFarlane cover.
It came out of nowhere. Yeah,
it's character popularity. I mean, you know, and at some point Venom will drop and not be as popular anymore, and those prices will drop, and same with Harley Quinn and all of them. They're eventually something else will take its place, and those are the ones that are going to go nuts. So
I'm going to give you an example of a real cameo appearance, though, and I can't remember the number, unfortunately. But when Jack Kirby went over to DC, you know, he was looking to do some type of work, and he didn't want to take work away from other people and that type of stuff. And nobody liked Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. He said, "I'll do it."
Oh, I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going with that? So I forget the number. Maybe you remember, Alan, something like number 113 or something like that, whatever it was. But in the last panel of that story of that particular issue, and I'm sorry I don't remember, maybe somebody could look it up while we're looking at it.
I'm looking it up.
Darkseid is on. You can see what people think is Darkseid on the TV screen. His name is not mentioned. You don't know it's Darkseid, anything like that. And so that, to me, because it turns out later on you find out it's Darkseid, that's a cameo. You know. Yeah. But not
in my opinion.
134.
What was it? 134.
134.
Yeah. Okay. 134.
I remember reading that book.
What's that?
I remember reading that issue because I was like, oh, why is this issue so big? And I remember in the front of the cover, it's everyone kind of carrying. I forgot who it was. Superman. Yes. So I read it. I was like, okay, this has nothing to do with Darkseid. Nothing to do with Darkseid. Nothing to do with Darkseid. And then at the very last panel, I remember exactly what you're talking about, Joe. A small TV. A very, very small TV in one panel. And I was like, is this really his first appearance? Because, like, you know, they talked about him, but I don't know. It just didn't feel right. Because I think the Forever People was his actual, like, well, his acclaimed first appearance, right? But they did talk about what is that equation that he was that he's known for?
The anti-life.
The anti-life equation. They talked about that in Jimmy Olsen, but that was like such a weird. It was actually a very psychedelic book. I remember reading that book. Like they took like real images and real pictures and slapped it on. I remember that book, but yeah, that's man. There's so much gray in this area, Joe. You brought up a perfect example.
But the market still
something about the Delta. I would just suggest to anybody watching to Hulk 180's catching up to Hulk 181. I think that's a safe thing to say. So all these others, all these other examples, the Gambit example, the Venom example, the delta is off skew. So I think it is I mean, it's not my place to tell you how to spend your money. Matt Woods tells me how to spend my money all the time. But
Steve is turning this into a spec video.
I'm just saying that
people complain about us.
We've thrown out several examples, and on several of them, the delta is really askew. So if you want to do the research and spend your money, that might be a spot to do it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Every time I see $2.99 in the wild, I pick it up.
Yep.
Every time. And it's, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a quote speculator, but I am, because someday I would love to trade those books in order to buy a bigger key. So, I have a ASM run that I'm working on, but I try to get multiple copies of this book.
Me too.
It's a great book to have.
Steve's on record for telling me about Hulk 180, 2 years ago. He's like, every time he sees it, he picks that book up. And then it blew up, did it not? In the last year?
I just wish I saw it more often.
Yeah, right.
And just wanted to add something to what Alan was saying about this Jimmy Olsen. I was looking at an auction that had a lot of comic lots in it, and 2 different lots had that Jimmy Olsen in it, one on its own and one with a group of other books. And they were bid up into the several hundreds of dollars, and they didn't look any better than like maybe a 6.0. They weren't that great looking, but whoever was bidding that up was like, oh, first appearance Darkseid. So in their head, they were spending the money on these terrible looking raws.
Yeah.
They weren't thinking, forever people. They were thinking that. So the market some people in the market are still looking at that as a first appearance, regardless of how.
And Wayne, that's important, because that is sometimes there are people who don't really know the value of some of these comics. They're just driving up the prices because of what they hear or understand. I mean, I go on eBay and I take a look at some of the, a book that it's kind of on my list of something that I'd be interested in, or it's a cover that I kind of like because I'm into covers, believe it or not. Yeah, and so it's a cover that I like or whatever. But I take a look at it, I try to determine what I think the value of that is, and I won't bid any more than I think the value is. Maybe if it's something I really want, I might go a little bit higher, but not much. But some people go up and they're bidding like hundreds. And I'm saying, this book is not worth that. I mean, unless your father wrote it or drew it, I don't see you spending the money on that.
It's crazy. And that's before the buyer's premium. So...
Hey, we might have to change the subject to this video or do another video or another topic in another video. I'm a big fan of sending books back that can get a grade bump, okay? And it's been working out quite well for me. I'm sitting here. Guys, I'm looking at this ASM 316 and I'm seeing a big non-color breaking, not crease, but a roll in it. I'm like, oh. This book looks good. I might be able to get a 9.8 out of this book.
Go for it.
Do it.
I might have to do that. That might be a topic for another video, though.
It might be. Yeah. I pulled up my Blue Marvel. I have it downstairs. I'm going to take a look at it. Matt and I talked about it. I have a 9.6, but I never really took a look at it to see. And that was, now again, I have a whole video on why I bought Blue Marvel. I went through an entire analysis. I put my lawyer hat on. I went through an entire analysis. This is why I'm talking about 180, 181. I kind of did for that book what I'm talking about with 180 and 181. I went through, I said, why do people want this book? Why is it? And I went through different categories of things, and ended up with a particular reason or rationale why. And decided in the last panel, obviously, was that I had decided to buy it and I bought it. And it was a 9.6. Now, I got it for below FMV at the time, but it's basically doubled in price. Doubled in price because of all the ideas that it might come into the MCU and all that. But that's what I'd like to see, like with something like 180 and 181, because it's just such a big deal. Is somebody go through and say, why is this book so important? Not just, it's the first appearance. Well, why is it the first appearance? What's there? What makes it more important than 180? How did that come about? Now Blue Marvel, the interesting thing about it was, on that video, was that the author God, I wish I should remember his name, but I don't.
I know, and I love the story.
Anyway, but the author commented. He obviously saw it and commented. And he commented and he said, I have my own ideas as to why this book it has become and remains popular. That was his statement. So I wrote back to him and said, yeah, I guess you should know, and I tried to engage him a little bit, but he wouldn't engage, in a discussion. But that's part of the issue, is why do people want that book? Because I think that makes a big impact on whether, 180 or 181 would be considered a first appearance, frankly.
Yeah.
So, Matt,
Honestly,
The writer is Gervaux.
Gervaux, right.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember.
I couldn't remember either. Kevin Gervaux, yeah.
Yep.
Honestly, I think this is a really good discussion to have, and I'm really glad you guys brought this up, Joe and Matt, because honestly, I feel like when we're talking about this, we're kind of in a small bubble within the comic book community. Not too many people understand like the difference between the first appearance of, like, for example, Wolverine 180 versus 181. And I think the fact that if you take the people that understand all of the stories and they're like, all right, they'll be able to have the conversation between 180, 181 versus the casual viewer or casual reader that sees 181 as a first appearance, the more that people understand and know about the stories, they'll be able to form and like their own opinion on this. Because I feel like a lot of people just getting into comics will follow the big wave of what people are thinking versus kind of deciding themselves. But if I read both 180 and 181, I would form my own opinion. And I feel like if you gave everyone that option and everyone actually did that, you might see a little bit of a more 50-50 or a more 180, or like, it might be slightly different the more people know.
I truly feel if you read 180 and 181, you lean the 181 because he's only in the very last panel of 180. In 181, he's in the whole story, from the beginning all the way to the end. So he definitely, I think 180 is his first appearance. Please don't get me wrong, but I can absolutely see the argument for people saying, well, it was just real quick. It wasn't a real big part of the story. It was just a cliffhanger at the end that you didn't know what or who this guy was.
Appearance. It's not the first dinner date with Wolverine. It's not the first overnight stay with Wolverine. It's
Pajama party.
The first appearance. He appeared. I love you, Matt Woods. I love you, but the word is appeared.
Good point. I can't argue
Very
with
poignant.
that.
Poignant point.
I just said I can see where somebody would argue it was more important in 181. I don't know about the Kyrgyzstan robe. I don't know if it's so jolly anymore.
So, any last words on this thing? I think have we talked this to death or what? I'm glad we made a decision on 180 and 181, though. That's good.
I'm glad we don't agree. I'm glad we don't agree. I'm glad we don't agree. I think it makes for a fun debate.
Yeah,
totally agree.
and a good one.
Honestly,
no right answer. Right?
There is no right. Correct. There is no right answer, because if you think about it, it's us. It's the community that makes the worth of a certain book, or as like a value of a certain book, the way that it is. We're driving it. So I think honestly, it's like we're in the Matrix, right? We're in a construct, and whatever the mass believes, it's gonna drive in that direction. Sorry, I just saw a preview of that today when I walked by.
It's all right, Neo. You're good.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, I didn't do too well of my 2021 goals because I lost sight again. Steve wants me to do a video on it, but I just don't want to, because I don't want to give myself a C or a D. But besides that, I think one of the things is to, again, Steve, you say it, other people say it too, collect what you like or you love or whatever else. And so for me, what I started to do last year, and I succeeded somewhat in some of these things, is to stop thinking about 181 or so, call it 181 or something like that, and say, what things do I like? So I said, well, I like Booster Gold. I like him, maybe not necessarily his first volume, but I like him. I think he's important. I actually do think he would be great in the DCEU. at some point. You know, I like the Ted Cord Blue Beetle because I have some of the older Blue Beetles too, the ones from Charlton and so forth, and I have a bunch of his. And because I'm a Roy Thomas fan, and I found out about Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew, I said, oh, I like that. I'm going to collect that. So I wanted to get the first runs of all three of those, and I managed to get that done. Now, I don't think many people care about it. Now, Booster Gold #1 has some value to it. But other than that, I don't think any of the other ones are worth more than a few dollars a piece, maybe $10 in some instances, because they go back, to the mid 80s and all that. But to me, I was happy with that. And so to me, that was important. So I wasn't looking to see how am I going to get enough money to get this or get that or get 180 or 181. I said, I'm going to focus in on these type of things and just go for these. And that's what I did. And I managed to get that done. Some other parts that I wanted to do, I didn't quite get done, but that part I did get done. So I'm happy about that. And now I'm going to look and see, well, next year, what am I going to do with this? And I already have some ideas as to where I'm going to focus next year. Now, that's not to say that if I'm going around and see 181 for half price or something like that, that I wouldn't potentially pick it up, or if I see something else that I want to get, that I might potentially pick it up. But that's not going to be a focus of mine because it becomes too stressful for me. To me, it doesn't make much sense. And especially since I'm looking kind of at potentially like an end game, I should do things that just make me happy and then worry about the end game and what I'm going to do with that. So that's going to be my 2022 focus with that. Not to change the topic, but I mean, I'm not worried about what's the first appearances or anything like that. I'm just going to collect what I think I like and what makes sense. And if it's cheap, all the better.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny you say that. My 2022 goals, I'm not going to be spending a lot of money. And I'm going to make a video about it, but I had a big push in 2021 and I did get all of my gold books and I'll have the video, but 2022, I'm looking to switch some things up to where it's not going to cost me a whole lot of money to achieve my, really cool comic book goal. So there's so many different aspects of this hobby. Like you said, you're trying to, do something different. And I like how you're talking, your end game is, 40 years away, Joe, but you're definitely thinking about that.
Well, my doctor actually told me that you're looking really good. I said, thanks. So he asked me how old I was. And I told him, I said, so he says, you don't look that old. I said, yes, I pay you to say those things to me.
Guys, I will tell you this. I was walking all through downtown Providence with Joe Travato one day. And that man was just going without a stop, without a hitch, never was breathing heavy. I mean, that man's got some energy and some go. I was really impressed with him. Stamina, baby.
Yes.
Anyway, thanks a lot. All right. So I think we've kind of talked this one out. What do you think, guys?
Yeah.
It was a good discussion, though.
Yeah, it was really great. It was really good.
It was really
good.
This
was a fun one.
All right. So do we have another one? Wayne?
Yeah, we have another topic. Actually, this was originally Stephanie's topic, and sadly she's not here tonight. So, but it's a little discussion amongst ourselves around balancing story and art, because as people may know, Stephanie is a sculptor and an artist, and art is a big part of her life, and so she looks at the beauty of the art in comics. So I feel like I'm talking about my wife. Sorry, Steve. Anyway, but I guess the idea is, does a book that has a terrible story, it's poorly written, but has gorgeous art, drive you to continue reading a book that maybe you don't even feel invested in because you're just blown away by the art? Whereas consequently, on the other side, you're reading just an amazing story, and it's emotional and compelling, but you just hate looking at the art. Like it's an artist you dislike. They're just not on their A game. And it's a slog to get through visually, but man, that story just drives you. Like, do you guys have examples of things like that? Or do you have opinions on how that affects your collecting and enjoyment of comics?
I feel like Steve has
books. I don't really care for the art, but I love the story, and so I'll read it. Now, Image in the 90s, you know, a lot of people laugh at Image, but they put out some good stories. They really did. Not all of them, trust me. But they had a series, Sam and Twitch. These were two detectives in the Spawn universe, and they were a break-off comic book series. And I absolutely loved reading that. But the art was just blurry. It was very undefined. I couldn't stand the art, but I loved the comic book, and I loved the story. Without a doubt, and I'll bring up two books as somebody else is talking. Art will catch your attention. If you walk into an LCS, you know, you're not reading the story before you see the art. You do see the art. So the art is important, but I've seen books with exceptional art and the story is just boring. And I won't buy another issue. I'll just put it away. But I've been the opposite, where I've bought issues with bad art, but a really good story.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm-
It's funny you mentioned the 90s, because I do, when we were kicking the tires on this topic, I think of Todd McFarlane's The Solo Spider-Man title, right? Amazing art. Todd McFarlane art, but Todd was writing that story, right? He left Amazing Spider-Man and they gave him the Spider-Man, and things changed, and it was I really like Todd McFarlane, so but that's an example. You think about Eric Larson took over and he was doing the art for Spider-Man, and then an Image, Savage Dragon, or James O'Barr's art in The Crow evolves as you're watching it. Amazing story. The art gets better issue to issue. At the end of the day, I'm going to keep buying it if the story's good. Even though me and Stephanie have an art background, and the cover buys, Pretty Fly and Joe, I will buy a cover and I'll open it, and if I'm not into it, it's over. Right? The writing has to be there if I'm going to keep buying and keep going. So at the end of the day, I land on story, even though I'm coming from an art interest.
My mind is blown. I thought I was going to be the only person that was pro story and not pro art.
Well,
no, I'm pro story too.
Yeah, I think we all are. But from my standpoint, what I don't like is, like with Spider-Man. How can I say this the right way? I'm more in tune with art. I'm talking about interior art, not really the covers, right? Because you can have like Delotto or one of these people doing the covers. I mean, they're just terrific, and the inside cover could be done. The inside art could be done by me, which would be horrible, right? So from that standpoint, when I have a character that I like Spider-Man, for example, and they change the artist, and the artist does more of a. This happened with Batgirl. I can't remember now who the artists were, but during the New 52 Batgirl, I really was into the comic book. I think I have all 52 issues. But midway through it, they changed the art, towards the end of that run, to an artist that drew more like a cartoonish type of art, rather than what I'll call, more realistic, people look like people type of art. I don't know if that explains it well. And so I'm not a big fan of the cartoonish type of stuff, right? But the stories were still very good. So I bought it, finished up that run, and I read the stories because they were good. But I always kind of looked at that art, and it kind of, it didn't make it as enjoyable to me anymore. Same thing with some Spider-Man stuff. With Spider-Man, I've learned, because Spider-Man is such a great character, and I've continued to buy the comics, even though I haven't read them since number 55 because I got so pissed off. But that's another story, and I probably should start reading them again, but I don't know. We'll have to make that decision. But Spider-Man is such a great character, and the stories up until recently were all so good that I got to I guess as the artists changed, and even if they had a more cartoonish type of art thing, I kind of got to not, if not enjoy it, accept it. All right, because of the nature of the story and what was there, and it became where it didn't really bother me as much. But with more tangential characters, it does. So I could read the story and I'll read it because that is to me more important. But the art, if it doesn't really coincide with what I like, it just detracts from it. It's not the same thing, you know, because you're reading words, you're not looking at the art at that time, but you do like to step back, and at least I do, and like to see, you know, if Spider-Man's coming down and doing something, I like to go look back at it and see how the words match the picture, the drawing that's there. And if
The
drawing's
art
not
is a
that
part
good,
of the storytelling medium.
right,
just
it
like you
takes
said.
away
Yep.
from it for me, you know. And you've got a lot of artists now. They got a lot of new artists, and some of them are good, but a lot of them I don't think are very good. I just don't think they're very good, at least from my standpoint.
Yeah.
That's why I've got drawn more to cover art, because most of it is by these really superior artists, you know, that are really,
Yeah.
really good at what they do.
Your weekly
So-
show on the hot covers, I love that because you introduce a lot of art that I probably wouldn't even know about. You know, these book titles that I wouldn't give a second glance at. Perillo, oh my gosh, you seem to have 2 or 3 Perillos every single week, and that guy, I don't know how he puts out so much great art.
Right.
And even though I'm a story guy, man, I would absolutely pick up one of those books.
I was
as a
buying so
cover
many
bond.
of them, Matt, I had to stop. I was spending so much money, so I may pick 1 or 2, you know. And some weeks I won't even buy one of them, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, I was buying like covers basically, especially
Yeah.
like some of those Batman ones, which are so really good.
Oh, so good.
And, you know, I
Mhm.
mean, I look at each one and go, wow, that really is good. You know, that's really good. You know, and I started buying them. I saying, what am I doing here? You know, I have to stop buying this stuff like this. So I had to tone it down and just pick a few covers that I really, really like. But it's interesting you say that, because that's where I think a lot of the artwork that is worth a damn is being put. A lot of there's new artists like Jenny Friesen has come in and she's doing these covers. I mean, I didn't even know who she was, and suddenly she's doing these covers, and I'm saying, "What? She's really good. She's got her own approach to things." Now, lately, I've seen some art in the covers where they're starting to do like watercolor type of things. I mean, this one coming up now, I've got a Wonder Woman, which I've been gravitating towards the last couple of weeks, but I got a Wonder Woman one that's reminded me of a of a painting I did in art class in 5th grade. Okay, it was much better than what I did in 5th grade, but it had the same type of watercolor approach that the art teachers told me,
yeah.
and he gave it a name. Maybe when Steph sees it, she'll know what the name is, or maybe you will, Steve. But he gave it a name. He goes, "Oh, this reminds me of this blah 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 that's there." And I saw this Wonder Woman thing. I said, "Oh, that's the same type of thing." I was ahead of my time as a 5th grader, you know. But that's where I think a lot of the
Nice.
money is going. You know, or they got to be paying Delotto, Perillo, these people. You know, they got to be paying them a ton of money to do this stuff, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a cover, so they must be thinking that people are buying the comic books because of the covers.
Hence variants. Why wouldn't you? You know.
Yeah.
I
Especially when the
remember
variants-
standing right next to Alan in somebody's driveway right outside of San Francisco last year, and we were talking about Peach Momoko.
Yeah.
And that's what she does. She does watercolor.
Yeah.
And you know, she's becoming quite a popular artist out there. I'm not saying it's all my favorite, but some of her art is fantastic. And so there's, like you said, there are a lot of different artists out there coming out with different things.
Yeah,
I only like about 20% of her stuff. The rest of it, I can take it or leave it.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm the same.
I'm-
But see, so the interior art is important, but it doesn't. I don't think it sells the comic book. You know.
But does it keep you invested in a book that's a poor read?
No, the cover might. I would buy for the cover if the story stinks. I would buy the cover if I think it's
But
good.
if you're looking, if the cover's great but the interior art sucks, and you're going, that's a great story, you're just going to keep reading it, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
You can look past the art. Yeah, not my cup of tea.
Ooh, 9.9. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the only good thing about
Only
it.
9.9, but that's a Peach
I've
Momoko,
been
and it's
followed.
watercolor. But some of her stuff I really, really do like. A lot of it I'm not a big fan of, but when she has a good cover, it's fabulous, actually.
Yeah.
So
But
I'm
some
gonna
stuff-
talk. I'm gonna
go ahead.
mention like a piece of, I guess, watercolor art that matches with like a great story. So I don't know if you guys have read Descender. So Dustin Nguyen is his watercolor art on his interiors are amazing. So I'm also going to take a devil's advocate kind of thing, because I think everyone understands that we love the story. If the art is not very good, we'll still read if the story is good. But I'm going to talk about the opposite end, right? I'll bring up a different perspective. So, for example, like obviously, luckily, I really like a good story that's been done by Jonathan Hickman with Pepe Larraz, and I love his art. But I'm going to give an example from before. I was reading the early like hundreds of X-Men, like 100 to 100 something. Once it's changed to Dave Cockrum, I really loved his interior art. And some of those stories were a little bit verbose, a little bit hard to read. Nothing against Claremont, but some of it was verbose, but I kept reading it because I really liked the art. And I'll talk about another one. All right. So the first couple issues of Eternals was kind of hard to read for me, but Jack Kirby's art himself in it just kept me reading those stories. So I think that's a very good example, at least for me, where even the story was kind of harder to read for myself, I kept with it because the art was good. And then it started getting a little bit better and better. So I think maybe that could be an example of a good artist that keeps you in there, even if the story isn't super great in the beginning.
I think Kirby is an example that I had thought about early in this discussion where, obviously he's the king, right? I find very few people who dislike Kirby's art. But man, I mean, he's an imaginative guy, man. Like his stuff is imaginative, but hard to get through sometimes. Really, like not. Sometimes I might get added in the comments, but sometimes stick to the art and let a writer write as opposed to trying to do everything at once, or help somebody flesh out your idea in a way that's going to read better than maybe what he wrote.
He's a generational talent, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but Kirby, for me, one of the things about Kirby was, I mean, because his women kind of looked the same. I mean, he drew people that looked like they were related to each other. All right, I mean, that was my view.
He kind of did, yeah.
But for me, it's the way he positioned the stories and his splash pages.
Oh,
what like the best in the world. You could take it. He should just have done a book with just splash pages. I mean, some of the Thor ones, like with the Living Planet and that. I mean, some of that stuff. I just look at it because I say to myself, this is just amazing. This is a story in and of itself. So to me, he was all about the splash pages and some of the pages where he positioned things certain ways, the panels certain ways. It wasn't just a 9-panel thing. He had different things going on. So because probably he wrote a lot of those stories, he was very imaginative with the way he put these things together. And that's what I liked the most about him, and the stories were good as well. So that kept you interested. But then you hit one of those splash pages, he'd have sometimes 1, 2, or 3 in a particular story. To me, they were just fantastic. Nobody before or since has done splash pages like Kirby.
Oh yeah.
And there's some art that I struggle, like I can't, like The Dark Knight Strikes Again. Like it's just so not my cup of tea. Like I don't know if you can visualize the art in that, but it's rough. It's rough. It's very stylized. I'll be nice and say it's stylized, but it's not visually appealing at all to me. It's kind of just like somebody let their kindergarten kid draw on paper and submit it with a good story. I'm okay. So I'm being harsh, I know, but it's
no, that's fine. That's fine. Everyone is entitled.
Tell us what you really think.
Yeah, tell us what you really think, Wayne.
I'm being mean-spirited.
I have a good
I'm
question.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Wayne. Go ahead.
I'm saying I'm being mean-spirited. I'm sorry.
I have a good question. Has anyone ever read this comic book, Hulk Annual #1?
I've never read it.
Exactly. This is a book. The only reason it's a quote classic, and I don't think it's a real classic, but a minor key, it's the Steranko art on it. The story is Hulk versus the Inhumans. Honestly, it wasn't even that good of a story. You know, like I'm a big story guy. The only reason anybody even knows of this book is because of this Steranko and actually Marie Severin art.
I was going to say Marie Severin's face, Hulk face.
So you know the story, yeah. And that's another one. Now, the Silver Surfer run from the 60s was classic, but this book right here is such a classic John Buscema cover.
That's
you know,
I like that
again, there's no first appearance, there's nothing in it, but this is a semi-key just because of this awesome Thor on the Rainbow Bridge Silver Surfer cover. So art does have its place in the comic book world. I mean, you know, we cannot deny that it's extremely important, but I still think story is the main driver, but you have to acknowledge the importance of the art on this. And
it's
Jack
a comic
Kirby with
book.
those splash pages, that's the only reason I could continue with Internals. It really
It's a comic book.
Right?
It's a comic book. Or else it would be a pulp magazine, you know, like the old pulp magazines with a couple of pictures here and there and the story there, right?
Well, hey, I love reading the pulp magazines.
Yeah, me too, but that's not a comic book.
I always go to like an example of where you have kind of both in spades. And it's one of my all-time favorites. I've always said is Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it's a compelling, touching story that tugs at your heartstrings, had a lot of tragic moments. But the Perez art is just, it brings it off the page, brings the story off the page, and brings it all to life. And that's what happens when you have a story in the hands of a master artist. So,
I should have brought that, but I did put this here. In,
that's
kind
beautiful.
of homage for him. And that's just this is just a tremendous
George Perez
book, you know, and it's a wraparound too. So it tells a story, it tells her origin and all that just right in the cover, you know, in terms of a wraparound, you know, signed it at the bottom. You know, it's great. It's a great book, you know, and I have the full Crisis on Infinite Earths as well. And I agree with you. I mean, that some of the covers on that too, and the stories themselves, very intricate artwork. I mean, so much there. When you read what he said about him, I mean, one of the things he liked about it was he got to draw every character, you know, in the DC world, you know, and he did a good job of it too.
And I always go back and I often look at the issue with the death of the Flash and just the sequence where he sacrifices himself. And it's such a powerful sequence in comics to me. Like that's one of my favorite all-time couple of pages, just where he makes that sacrifice. And spoiler alert, but just how it comes off the page to me is just incredible. So
I agree. That was great and shocking too.
Yeah,
if you read it back in the day, especially.
Oh my God, yeah.
People didn't die that often back then, you know.
Yeah.
and he
then you had
stayed dead for a long time.
And then you had other stories that were not as good, and I find the art, although okay, wasn't as compelling. Like Infinite Crisis, I think that's one where you had not a great story, in my opinion. With art was okay, but it wasn't like fantastic. So
it's like finding that perfect dance partner, right? When you have the perfect writer with the right artist, especially for that storyline. Yeah.
So something like the classic FF trilogy 48 to 50 is a good example of where you masterful story, masterful art, put it together. You got the best meatball sandwich ever. So,
Ooh.
Wait, my mother made that. Wait a minute, my mother made that.
I was thinking of Joey on Friends, meatball sub.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, that's good. So where are we? We're almost at an hour and a half. So any final things here on this particular topic? I think it was good. Though maybe need to talk about we have to talk about covers sometimes and whatever.
Yeah.
But we'll do that again. You know, and
I want to see some of Steve's covers, like, or his favorite art covers. Yeah.
You know, Steve, I've been looking at art since you started doing that. I've been looking for Booster Gold art, and I've been looking at one that I think is a little bit overpriced. It's really a good piece, though. So I'm like,
buy it. Buy
Yeah,
it.
just go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
Should I
Oh
buy it?
my
I think
god.
it's a little overpriced. I don't know. Would Steve buy it? What would Steve do? I'm thinking to myself.
Steve would buy it.
Steve would buy
I would
it.
buy it.
Steve would buy it.
If you love it and you're like it's an amazing piece, then it's not overpriced.
Is that it?
No.
I
That's
hope
how
it
it
has,
works.
I'll have to go look then and see if it's sold. Hopefully, it hasn't sold yet.
Yeah,
There's
don't
only,
live like
there's
me and
only
regret.
that one out there. There's not another
Yes.
one of that. There's not another 9.8 of that out there. It's
Mhm.
just that one.
It's just that one. You got
Yep.
it. That's true. That's true.
But these were two absolutely awesome topics to talk with you guys about. Because Alan, you hit it on the head. Like you are coming back into the hobby. Well, I never really left, but I've never done this social media, this interaction. This is always a private hobby. Where honestly, my friends, my coworkers, they had no clue that I had a comic book collection. You know, that's how private it was for me. But so I say that because I don't know everything about comic books. I don't know all the history. I don't know every single story or all the nuances. So these were two really wonderful topics to talk with you guys about, because I feel like I have a little bit of comic book knowledge, but I'm also a student of the game, and you guys, you know, did a great job of helping, you know, give me different perspectives of this. So thank you very much, guys.
Well, you know, Matt, we did this all for you. That was it.
Appreciate it.
We did.
I felt the same way. You guys are talking about a lot of Marvel stuff that I didn't really know about. You're throwing these numbers out. Some of them are new. Other ones I didn't know what the thing was. That's why I was going like to them. Which one are they talking about here? Which one is this? You know. So I've learned a bit as well. I think it's great just talking about some of these things and getting different perspectives on there.
Yeah.
Though I was really wishing we would beat up on Matt Woods on the story versus art thing, but it didn't turn out that way.
It seemed like
Maybe
everyone
next time.
agreed.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we close off by maybe Matt? You want to tell us what you mentioned something about a video coming up? Anything new coming up on your channel, or anything else you want to bring up for the entire population watching this show here?
You know, my channel has been on a definite slowdown. I haven't released a new video in a week, and there's a reason why. I am now the assistant girls varsity basketball coach at the school I work at, and I'm having a lot of fun. These are really good kids. They work hard. They all want to get better, and it's time consuming. You know, I'm getting home after midnight because of away basketball games, and so my channel's taking a little bit of a back seat to that, but I'm still going to try to keep pushing out videos. You know, at least I'd like to be once a week at least.
That's good. That's good. Steve, what about you? Are you going to not put out anything until Steph is back?
Well, no,
That might be a good idea.
we're doing exactly. Thanks. We did notice when Stephanie got in the Scarlet Witch cosplay, our views really ratcheted up some. So there's going to be more cosplay coming. No.
Nice.
I do want to take a moment to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We are doing our year-in review. We did the original art goal books, and then we're going to do our off-goal books, which is where I learned the most about how to make next year better. Like, oh, why did I buy this $200-$300 comic book? You know, because of FOMO or whatever, or was it a solid investment? So I'm looking forward to that. And looking forward to shoot more videos with Stephanie. She's a big part of my life, not on YouTube and on YouTube. So
Very good.
Yeah.
Alan, how about you?
Yeah, so it's funny. I've also been taking a little bit of a hiatus because you know, it's family time this month, and so I think next year I'm resetting the channel a little bit just to try to, you know, refine that inspiration and try to come out with content that, like, you know, matters to me and everyone else. So definitely looking forward to that, and of course, happy holidays to everyone, just like Steve, and you know, just have fun with your family and just like enjoy your time. Yeah, it's a really great time to be a comic collector, and it's a really great time to be part of this community. So I appreciate you all. Thanks.
Great. Wayne?
I actually have a video in the can on some stuff I picked up recently at some auctions and some sales. And I actually had 2 boxes from CGC that arrived this week. They're sitting downstairs unopened. So I will be doing an unboxing video for either, I'll do one for both or one each, depends. I'm also been noodling over, I've been talking to some people about an idea I had for a video series coming up in the coming year to look at the comic book industry aspects of it and that kind of thing. So one of the things I need to do is really get a better video editing software and actually teach myself how to edit videos better. So once I can get some of that under my belt, I think I can come up with some really cool content. Other than that, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa to everybody out there, and hope everyone has an awesome holiday.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, let me start off by wishing everybody a happy holiday, whatever it is that you celebrate or have celebrated. And I want to thank everybody again for having the sellout in 6 or 7 hours of my mystery boxes, my charity mystery boxes. That was a terrific experience. We'll be doing it again probably next year, maybe with a partner. The end of year, I can't tell you how busy I have been. I've been doing a lot of driving, going all around. It's the end of the year. Tomorrow I'm going to go visit some family in New Jersey as well. I got to go back to Cape Cod next week. Getting ready to go down to Florida and things like that. So it's been pretty tough to kind of get stuff together. So I've been struggling really a little bit with the videos as well, but I'm still going to try to get out the Monday show. I might, depending on how things work, might, skip out like the week between Christmas and New Year's. I'll see how it works out because it's just like a little bit too difficult to do. Yeah. I'd like to do an end of year evaluation of my goals. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not, but I do have a number of comics my mom let me keep that are, ready to film and so forth. I'm going to try to film them before I go down to Florida. It'll be a little bit easier to do. So they'll be in the can. Bruno has, indicated that he'd like to do something. So I'm trying to look for something for Bruno to do. I did get back a signed ASM 101 from Roy Thomas. So it's going to be part of an espresso mail call that I'm going to try to put together for next week. We'll take a look at that. If you remember, I said, which one should I do? Was the Red Guardian versus, it's going to be espresso. Red Guardian versus the Morbius thing. And we picked the Morbius. And so we'll see whether or not my guess on the grade would comes to fruition. So I got a bunch of things, some ideas that are in there. I think it's all going to be good, going to be fun. As long as I keep making the covers, I'll have at least one show I could do, and this will be the second, hopefully. That works out well. So I think with respect to this particular show, I think our next one is going to be sometime in January. We haven't figured out a date yet. So stay tuned, everybody. And we'll see you all in a month. Take care.
Hey, guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.